Parshas Savo, Tafshinayim Beis, getting very, very close to Rosh Hashana, getting toward the end of Elul. The venue for this year has been changed this week, Baruch Hashem, due to a simcha that I have to be at on Thursday night when we usually say the shir in the Southside Sandwich Shop. So we changed the place of the shir just for this week, and Amir Hashem, next week, the last week before Rosh Hashana, we hope to be back at our regular location. We find at the beginning of this week's Parsha the mitzvah of Bikurim. The mitzvah of Bikurim we find in the Mefarshim, in the Torah, a very, very special mitzvah in many different ways. Let me tell you a Sifri. Begin by telling you a Sifri. The Sifri says, Asay mitzvah zu, do this mitzvah, the mitzvah of Bikurim, shebischara, in the schar for this mitzvah of Bikurim, tikones la'aretz. You're going to be zoicha because of this mitzvah to go into Eretz Yisrael. The Medrash also tells us on the pasuk at the beginning of the Torah of Bereshis bara Elokim, the first pasuk in the Torah, you all know, that ein reishis ela bikurim. Bikurim is something that's called reishis. We know the pasuk says in the Torah a few times reishis bikurei, and that is referring to the mitzvah of bikurim. That the entire bria, the Medrash says, Bereshis bara Elokim, at the beginning, in the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, that the entire bria was kedai to be created just for the sake of mitzvahs bikurim. We find other things that the Mefarshim bring down, that we find other things, characteristics of the mitzvah of bikurim, that was really very special too. We find that when the bikurim were brought to the Beis HaMikdash, we read the entire history of Klal Yisrael. We say we start from Arami Ovid Avi, from the time of Lavan, and we go through the entire history of Klal Yisrael then. Why then? Why by Bikurim? I mean, the kasha begs to be asked, why by Bikurim do we all of a sudden decide to start reading and saying the history of Klal Yisrael from the time of Lavan? And why only then? And if we're going to say by Bikurim, why don't we do it by other mitzvahs? In addition, we find other requirements of Bikurim. Bikurim has to be brought b'simcha. It has to be brought b'roiv hadras melech. And we don't find any of these things, not by Truma, not by Meiser, just by Bikurim. So what is the explanation for all of this? So Nesivos Shalom says that Bikurim actually does represent, he wants to bring a raya, that Bikurim does represent the tachlis for the entire creation of the world. The tachlis of the bria is found in Bikurim. The Medrash says in a number of places, and one of them included in Parshas B'chukoisai, Medrash Tanchum and Parshas B'chukoisai, says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dwelling place on this world. And that is precisely why this world was created. This world, Olam Hazeh, was created because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dwelling place here. In the Nesivos Shalom up there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has many malachim, usrafim, that are all doing the Ratzon Hashem, and they're serving Hashem. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu still wanted Olam Hazeh. He still wanted to have a dira in this world. Why? Zok Nesivos Shalom, that in the Nesivos Shalom, the malachim, usrafim, they have no taiva to do otherwise. They have no yetzer hara to do otherwise. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a dwelling place, dafka, in this olam hagashmi, where there is a yetzer hara, and where there are taivas, and where people could do other things. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted in a place where people, like you and I, where people have an opportunity, even though you have your taivas, and you have your yetzer hara, you have an opportunity to say no and be mekadesh shem shamayim. And because of that reason, because of the idea of kiddush shem shamayim, that is so chaviv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you know what? I have all the covenant, I have everything in Nesivos Shalom, but no, I want a dira, I want a place in this world. The Sefer Ma'or V'Shemesh brings a beautiful explanation of Bikurim, and he brings it from Rebbe Melech Milizansk. The Mishnah, Masechtos Bikurim, Perek Gimel, says the following. That what happens by Bikurim? A person goes down to his field, and he sees the first fruit he sees in his field, a fig, grapes, or a rimon. He sees a fruit. And what does he do? When he sees that first fruit, he goes, he takes out like a string, and he ties it onto the fruit, and he says, Zeh libikurim. He ties it to the fruit, and he says, this here is for bikurim. So let us analyze, in this act that this person just did in his own field, let's analyze what's happening over here. This person worked the entire year. Tough work of planting, of watering, of cultivating the field, taking care of the field, pruning the tree. He did everything the entire year. What an unbelievable, fulfilling moment it is when he comes out to the field and he sees literally the fruits of his labor. He sees the first fruit come out. So what would we think would be the initial reaction that a person would have when he sees that first fruit? The initial reaction is to just take that fruit and pluck it off a tree and just take a bite out of it and savor it. Savor every moment and eat that fruit. And just at that very moment, when he wants to be doing that thing, and it's the culmination of all his effort and all his hard work from the entire year, and you're watching it literally bearing fruit, what do? You stop, you take out a string, you tie it on, and you're meyached that fruit for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the mitzvah of Bikurim. What are you doing? You're giving Hashem that which is most important and desired by you. Your entire work. And when we look a little deeper into Bikurim, that is exactly what Bikurim is. And that's the tachlis of the Bikurim. You're giving what you want most, and what is dearest to you, and you're giving it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Be'emes we see in a few different places where you're giving the first. We see it by Peterechem, where we say Kaddish Li Kol B'chor. We see it by B'chor Bonechot Titanli. We see it by Reishis Degoncha, the first. Reishis Harisoy Seichem. We see it by Reishis Hagez. All these things are Reishis. However, the most important one, and we see the most chashuva one of them all, is this mitzvah of Bikurim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at it at the most important because that is something that you worked on. That's something you really want, and you mekadosh that for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, this mitzvah, what we said, actually, now we can understand why we said Bishvil Reishis, because of this mitzvah of Reishis Bikurei Ad Masacha, that the entire Bria Sa'olam was Kedai for this mitzvah. Like we said, the tachlis of the Bria is for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have a dira, to have a place on this world. Why? Because on this world we have the opportunity to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, and that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And what bigger Mekadesh Shem Shemayim is there than for a person to take all his work and all his effort and everything that he worked for and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm taking this now and I'm giving this to you. That's Bikurim. And that's the reason why it says in the Mishnah, that's why when the people who are bringing Bikurim came to Yerushalayim, state that everybody in Yerushalayim gave them kavod and stood up for them. For the Mevi Bikurim, there was a tremendous kavod given to them. Everybody stood up. And we know that people who are working, if you're an employee, if you're working, and even if the halacha states, even if a Talmud Chacham would come in, you're not allowed to stand up for a Talmud Chacham. You're on somebody else's time. You're working. However, by the mitzvah of Bikurim, it's so chaviv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this rachis that people, we say no. You even stop everything that you're doing, and everybody understands, and everybody wants this, and everybody understands that you stand up and you give kavod to the people who are bringing Bikurim. We say, V'lakachta mereshis kol peri ha'adama. That's the pasuk here by Bikurim. Zokt in Nesivos Shalom, another thing that it's telling us, is even from the lowest taivas, the taivas that a person has, mi pri ha'adama, from the lowest things in this world, what do we do with Bikurim? We show, V'hinachta lifnei Hashem alekecha. You have an opportunity to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, with your taivas, with your Yetzer Hara, with your things that you have a difficult time with. The lesson here of Bikurim is, Kiddushem Shemayim. V'hinachtoi lifnei Hashem Alekecha. You could take that in every facet of your life. You could take that which you have the most difficulty with. Your Yetzer Hara, your thing that you're working on, this Elul that you know, V'hinachtoi lifnei Hashem Alekecha. That's Kiddushem Shemayim. Take something and give that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we said also, because of this mitzvah, they were Zoicha to Eretz Yisrael. Zok Nesivos Shalom. What does that have to do with Zoicha to the Zechiyah to have Eretz Yisrael? How is Eretz Yisrael different than all other Adam? How is Eretz Yisrael different than every other country, than every other place? Zok Nesivos Shalom. And in every other country, in every other place in the world, the Adama, the ground, is chol. It's nothing. It's zero. In Eretz Yisrael, the actual ground that you walk on, the dirt on the ground, the earth, the actual thing that you plant in the Adama in Eretz Yisrael is something which has tremendous Kedusha. And through anything that's planted in this ground has tremendous Kedusha. And we see from here that you could be Mekadesh something, from the ground up. Just want to end off with a vart that we said, that we read by Bikurim. We start reading from Arami Oived Avi. We start reading from the history of Klal Yisrael. And what is it coming to tell us? Why Dafka by Bikurim do we pick this opportune moment to discuss Lavan? Why would we want to talk about Lavan here? Because Be'emes, Lavan was the epitome of Kfira. Lavan was the one who said whatever Yaakov did, he was kaifer on everything. Nothing was from Yaakov Avinu. Nothing was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The children are mine. The daughters are mine. Everything Lavan said was his. He was totally kaifer. We are teaching this lesson of Lavan to tell us that even if you're coming from the lowest place, even if you're coming from a place where really up until now you didn't believe, you didn't think too much about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you gave in to Yetzer Hara, you did things that weren't so good. We start from Arami Oived Avi, Lavan, who was the biggest kaifer of them all, who was kaifer in everything from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and everything that existed at that time. From there, Arami Oived Avi, we start talking about Lavan and we say that you're able to be Makadeshem Shemayim. You're able to take something that you have difficulty with, something which is sort of, quote, low in your life, and bring it up and make this beautiful mitzvah Bikurim. We're learning this parsha about a week before Rosh Hashana, maybe 10 days to Rosh Hashana. And Rosh Hashana is, in this time of Elul, is a time of the year where we have to think about being Mekadeshem Shemayim. Take something, when you're coming to before Rosh Hashana, you take the thing in your life, which is Taka Priho Adama, something which you may have tread on, something which you may have not had respect for, something which you, a mitzvah in the Torah, or a lav in the Torah, that you sort of did away with a little bit with your hands. You stepped on it, so to speak, with your foot. It's on the Adama now. The idea that we could take out of the lesson of this week's Parsha Bikurim is that you always have an opportunity, and that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu made his dwelling place in this world for that reason, to watch you and every other person, to watch every person take Miprio Adama, something which you stepped on till now, and be Mekadeshem Shemayim. Let's take this lesson and use it along with the other lessons that we're learning this Chodesh Elul before Rosh Hashana, that we should all be Zoicha Amir Tashem this year, that we should be able to go back to Eretz Yisrael, be able to do the mitzvahs hatliyos ba'aretz, and we should all be Zoicha to Aksiva v'Chasima Toiva and Agut Yor.